Welcome everyone to this webinar for the launch this week of the pilot version of the ULS, the Universal Logistics Standards. And this is the end product of the project we started last year in August, a project called Development of Best Practice and Universal Standards for Human Transport and Logistics, funded by DG ECO and managed by the Inspire Consortium. Here are the objectives of the session. We will describe a bit more the elements we discussed at the beginning of this project to understand the rationale of universal standards. What do we mean by universal standards in the human sector and specifically for the human logistics? We'll go specifically to we'll have a specific look to the ULS to have a practical knowledge of the handbook to understand the structure and the content. And at the end, we'll also introduce the next steps, not of this project because we are at the end of this first project, but we'll share with you some ideas about the next project we hope to start in the coming weeks or month. So here we go. Just as to recap a bit, as I said, we started this project last year in August. Actually, we have quite small core team. I'm Camille Nussbaum. I'm the coordinator of this team. I'm based here in Madrid because I'm working at IECA, the Spanish part of the Inspire Consortium. And I have the great pleasure to work with two thematic logistic experts. Danny Garcia is not here today, and then George Fenton. George, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Camille. I'm George Fenton. I'm one of the consultants working on this project, and I am based in the UK.
Great. And well, this small, tiny team, we started this project, as I said, in August last year, and we started with an inception phase, a desk review phase. We had the opportunity during this month from August to November to have many meetings, to have many interviews, to review the existing standards and guidelines in the sector, to understand better what sort of standards we should develop to have something useful for the sector and for different actors. After that, we started in November, end of November, the drafting of the ULS. We actually inaugurate this name, the Universal Logistic Standards. And we were able to publish in May this year the first draft, the V1 draft of the ULS. Then we started open consultations via, and that's why we know some of you, series of online consultations in different regions. And we also set an online platform to share this draft and to have more comments and feedback. So we are here, we are at the end of these open consultations after several reviews we had, and we are actually about to publish this pilot version of the ULS, and this would be the end of this project. Over to you, George.
Yeah, thanks, Camille. So there are, of course, many existing technical logistics standards that are used by aid organizations at different levels in different contexts. But what we found is that most are very organization-centered and few are universally recognized, or standards are not universally applicable in all contexts. So particularly for smaller local organizations, non-logistics staff, non-logistics personnel, often implementing logistics operations at fairly small scale, it's often a challenge to translate high-level principles into applicable and measurable good practice, as it says here on the slide. So what we're trying to do is, and I think that we've made good progress in doing, is creating a set of principles reference document that is useful to a wide range of stakeholders, particularly at the local level. Through that, we want to be able to ensure that you can do better interventions in terms of capacity building, improve the level of coordination because everyone's speaking the same language in terms of terminology, etc. And we want to be able to use this tool as a means to improve advocacy about the importance of humanitarian logistics and supply chain in humanitarian action. And when we're talking about quality and accountability, we mean equality and accountability to the affected community. We're not seeing the ULS as a compliance tool, a means to enforce regulations, but what we want to be able to do is improve the way that humanitarian logistics activities are performed overall, in all contexts, at all management levels, and as I said, for logisticians and non-logisticians within local NGOs, international NGOs, the public sector and private sector, as well as, of course, the donor community. Back to you, Camille.
So if we talk about some standards and standards in the humanitarian sector, a key reference here is the Sphere Handbook. I think for every single humanitarian worker around the world, the Sphere Handbook is a clear reference, like a Bible, to know what sort of minimum standards we should ensure in a humanitarian response. The Sphere Handbook was launched last century in 1998, so long time ago, and actually had a great success. Now we have the 4th version of the handbook, this one, the purple one, and the structure is quite the same. We have the foundation chapters, the humanitarian charter, protection principles, the core humanitarian standard. And we have some technical chapters about wash, food sack, shelter, and health. Thanks to these, to the minimum standards part of Sphere, all these actors George just mentioned, local, international, big, small, from the private sector, from the public sector, they can speak the same language, they can talk together, and they can work together and have a common reference. So what we want to do, developing the ULS, is pretty much the same. Right now, we are not linked, we are not part of the Sphere family. You can see in this slide some of the other standards already part of this Sphere family. Like INI for education, for instance, or LEGS for livestock. So when we started to develop the standards, starting in November last year, we decided to do it with the same format, with the same logic, and we'll see in the future. Now we are just about to publish the pilot version of the ULS, so it's not the moment to do that. But we would like in the near future to be fully aligned with the Sphere Handbook and to be a complement of these foundation chapters. And that's why we included different references to these same foundations, the Humanitarian Charter and Protection Principles, the Core Humanitarian Standard. And what we are trying to offer with the ULS is a 5th chapter, specifically regarding the logistics, as a complement to the Sphere Handbook. Something really important to understand is when we are talking about standards, as George said, for many people and many logisticians, standards sounds like technical standards, like rules to comply with. And these standards are a bit different. These are open. They were developed by the sector, like Sphere and like the ULS. So that's why we had so many participatory activities, so many sessions with some of you and more people. And these standards are voluntary. They are not there to enforce anyone to do this or that, but they are there to stand what is the common approach throughout the sector and what we should try to ensure in a general manner, and some indicators and some elements to guide people to actually achieve this. And to develop these standards, the first draft of the standards, we started actually to work with the technical advisory group. The TAG is a small group, of around 15 professionals from different organizations. You can see with this logo, we had people from very large variety of organizations. And we have to say that this is not endorsement from these organizations, because people participated. The most of them, they participated as part of their job, of their position. But at present, we didn't ask formally any organizations to endorse the project, to endorse the product. Also because we are in the middle, we are publishing the pilot version, and hopefully we'll publish the final version next year. As we said, we published the V1 draft in May, thanks to the work from the TAG and the core team. And we had different mechanisms in place to have more and more comments and feedback. We had consultations online because of the COVID, but in all around the world. So we had these regional online sessions, and we also had comments and feedback via the online platform. Thanks to that, we published different updates. We had a first small update updating the introduction. In July, we had a second update at the end of September, the V2. And we discussed the highest level comments we had, in a validation workshop. And thanks to that, we are about to publish this pilot version. Just to develop a bit regarding these consultations, we had these regional consultations. Actually, it was really interesting for us to have feedback from so many different places. We had a total of 17 sessions all around the world, 2-hour sessions discussing specific chapters and working with smaller groups to discuss specific parts of each chapters. We worked in 5 regions with local facilitators. We worked in 3 languages, English, French, and Spanish, and we had a total of almost 200 participants. We also had many comments and feedback via the platform. This is an online platform. You can have access to the content. Right now, if you go to the platform, you'll have access to the V2 document. And soon, on Wednesday, you'll have access to this pilot version. Over to you, George.
So over the years, and I suppose we're going back 20 years perhaps, to when we first started talking about humanitarian logistics, or the term humanitarian logistics first started being used and recognized as something that needs to be developed. There were a number of initiatives. One of them we have based ULS on is called the Parcel Project, or the Partner Capacity Enhancement for Logistics tool. It was a set of training materials largely developed a number of years ago by, I think, about 9 or so international NGOs led by Oxfam at that time. And that project was also funded by DG ECHO. we've used the parcel standards as the basis upon which to further develop ULS. And that also has led us to consider what needs to be included that was missing previously in versions of materials like parcel, or in terms of the logistics operations guide, which is hosted by the logistics cluster and now being updated by them. So what we want to be able to do through ULS is reference those materials where it makes sense, but also to start to think about what else needs to be considered. So there are a number of cross-cutting elements that we have started to include in ULS, such as the most recent one being an approach that considers gender and diversity as being very important in humanitarian logistics activities, operations, cash-based assistance or market-based assistance, so elements that relate to those. Environment is a big topic at the moment, of course, and so we're making sure that as far as is possible, we are recognizing the importance of taking appropriate steps to ensure environmental sustainability in logistics activities. And then, of course, the other important piece that hasn't previously adequately been considered is around safeguarding and protection. So safeguarding of not only people being assisted in humanitarian contexts, but also of staff working in those contexts. And then what we want to be able to do is make sure that we have a set of indicators that enable you to assess how far you've been able to achieve a certain standard or a certain principle. The different types of indicators are aligned to the Sphere standards themselves. So process indicators, progress indicators, and target indicators, which we hope to be able to consider in more detail in the next series of activities that we conduct through a new project following this one. Next slide. So there are 6 chapters, technical chapters in ULS, those being asset management, distribution, fleet management, warehousing, procurement, and transport, and each one touching on these various cross-cutting topics that I've just mentioned around cash, protection, safeguarding, environment, and gender. And possibly there may be other cross-cutting elements that we might come up with later on. So the format of ULS follows the format of Sphere, whereby you have a standard that are general and qualitative in nature, stating the minimum that needs to be achieved or should be achieved or aspired to. Then there's a series of key actions that, as far as is possible, are set out in order of priority. And these are the minimum steps that need to be considered in order to achieve the minimum standard that has been laid out. And then, again, as I was mentioning earlier, a set of key indicators. We tried to keep these key indicators to a minimum number. It's been difficult to do that, and we still want to make sure that they are as useful as possible in order to guide the achievement of that standard. And then there's in each of the standards has a set of guidance notes which explain in a bit more detail how to achieve that standard, what steps are appropriate, and further references to more technical detail that can be followed. Back to you, Camille.
So here we are. That's what we achieved thanks to these, with your participation, all of you that actually were part of the consultations or who sent comments via the online platform. And thanks for that. And here we are. This week, it is the end of this project. As we said, we are about to press the publish button and to have the pilot version of the standards available in the website. You'll have access to it with the same link. Right now, you'll have access to the V2 document, and on Wednesday, you'll have access to the V3, to the pilot version of the ULS. We'll also publish a PDF version in the coming days for those who need or want to have a downloadable format or to print it. It is important to say that this is the pilot version. This is a version to be piloted, and this is not the final version. As we already explained, this is a first project funded by DGECO. We are actually discussing with DGECO and with other actors how to start a second project to actually pilot these standards, to test this version at field level with real teams. So again, this is the end of this project. We don't have all the details confirmed for the next project, so we'll not be able to share so many details today regarding the next project. But the logic of this project, this end of project product, is that you and all actors in the sector can use it as a pilot version, can test it, and can provide feedback. What we'll do tentatively in the next project is to test it by selecting some organizations, 3, 4, 5 organizations, to train, to decide which teams, which country programs will be involved in this pilot, and to meet these teams, to train these teams on the ULS, the contents, the different use of the standards, and actually to monitor and to evaluate these use during 2 or 3 months. What we want to do with that is to identify all the elements to be improved. And after that, we'll have work again with the tag, with different experts to update the document, to incorporate all these important, useful updates. And we'll have more open consultations to have different feedback, different perspective regarding these improvements. And we would finally publish the final version of the standards, as we said, tentatively in 1 year, in next winter, 2021. So this is it for today. Again, we are super excited for this launch of the pilot version of the ULS. And this is the end of a quite long and interesting journey. And it is also, as you can see here, the start of a second interesting journey for sure. We'll start with the piloting starting next month in November. So this is it for the presentation. As we said, this is a webinar, so this is an opportunity to talk with you. So if you have any questions, any comments, we would be happy to discuss, to answer. You can set it via the chat if you want. Anyone?
I did have a question. I'm just trying to see if my video can. Perfect. Having some small challenges today with the computer. First off, I think it's a great presentation. I think it's a great summary of really the timeline and all the effort that's gone in. And again, great to commend Camille and George and the rest of the team really for the work that they've put in so far. I know, George, we met you in Nairobi, and it seemed like it was all over the place at that time. But now it really has taken a lot more shape. So thank you also for the opportunity to be part of that journey. I had just 2 quick comments. I know one of them is I think completely untimely, but it just came to me as you were presenting these slides. It's in reference to something that's called the Care Emergency Toolkit. I don't know if you've heard this. I had come across this document a few weeks ago when I was doing some research. I'm going to put the link in the chat, but maybe for subsequent versions, if you want to look through and see if there's anything that we can pick from there, it might actually be of relevance. It also had kind of a checklist approach, and it seemed a bit standardized. So I will post that. The second comment, I think on one of your first slides, you had indicated the original purpose of the group. I think you'd had those 3 bullets there. And it leads me to think about, it's kind of like right now it's like a series that's hanging, at the end when you're waiting for the next episode. And I was wondering, what is the outcome? What are we looking for here? If you could maybe actually go to those slides at the beginning. I think it was the second. Right. No, one more. Keep going back. One more. The challenges that you're facing with the. What was that? Right. And anyway, there was somewhere where you had indicated, to look at. Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's this slide particularly. It might be the next one, but. Okay, no, I'm not seeing it. Anyway, the point of this was to say, are we, as an organization, are we going to now reach, do we have something to measure against? Is this what we're looking for? What do we hope to have achieved having this new standard out? You said like, yeah, we can look at things in our own operations, but does it mean that there'll be less, if you follow these standards, there should be less occurrence of I wish I could see those slides, but would there be less instances of wastage? Would there be more efficiency gains? Would there be, what are we looking out for? What is that outcome that we should ideally see in the organization over the next few months? It's kind of like it's hanging a bit. I don't know if this really makes sense or not.
So, yeah. So I think this stage that it's too early to say exactly how organizations are going to be able to benefit from the ULS as this first draft. The intention, because we still need to pilot these standards, make sure that they are applicable in different contexts and they're sort of understandable in a broader sense. But ultimately, of course, the aim is to improve the way that humanitarian logistics activities can be performed through better coordination. And to ensure that different stakeholders are moving in the same direction with a better understanding as to how they play their different roles. One of the big problems at the moment is, as we were saying, I think that there are different terminologies used, different approaches to undertaking, say, procurement activities. And particularly at the local level, among organizations or individuals that only occasionally participate or need to be able to undertake a logistics-related activity, there's a lack of understanding as to how best to do that. So hopefully these ULS standards will provide a set of useful guidance.
Just to add on that, I guess the benefits of using the ULS, just saying that this is the pilot version, so this is the final version, but they are intended to guide many different actors to deliver quality humanitarian response. So you mentioned the checklist approach. And this is quite a good tool for quality management in the organizations. This could be understood as a high-level principle-based checklist, what we are describing in all I'm just summarizing a bit and simplifying a bit. It's not a checklist, but with these standards, these universal standards, if organization can have a look to the different chapters and see, actually have a look to these different chapters, they'll see whether they are aligned or not with the common best practices in the sector, and they'll have the opportunity looking at the key actions, the key indicators, to actually see the sort of things they are doing, the sort of things they are not doing, and try to explain by themselves why they are not considering these key actions or these indicators. So this is the value of the ULS. Again, we didn't invent nothing. We developed something really aligned with the Sphere logic, the Sphere format, taking into account that the Sphere had huge success all around the world in all the humanitarian sector, because it is something universal, but also really flexible and adaptable to the different organizations, to a different sector. Sector and context.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Any more thoughts? Any more comments? Thomas?
Yeah, I have a question here. Yes. So what I'm seeing on the website now, or what I'll be seeing on Wednesday, is the pilot version.
No. This is the V2. Right now, you are seeing the V2 version. It is an improved draft. From the V1 draft, we actually reviewed with you and colleagues in Asia Pacific. But the last version of this project, the V3, the pilot version, is about to be published. But we haven't pressed the publish button because we are waiting for the last adjustments, and we'll be able to actually press the button and to publish it in 2 days, on Wednesday.
Okay, so that will be the pilot version. Does that
Yes.
mean that this pilot version will be used by some organizations in the field, to see whether it's really workable, and then we will, or you will, have the second round of consultations based on their actual experience in the field?
Yes, this is it. We are not able today to share much more details about this second project, because we are in the rush of the last week of this first project, and we haven't formally confirmed with the different stakeholders the details for this second project. But the logic of it is to, as you just said, to pilot it, to use the ULS at field level with different actors, to compare, to identify what things to improve. And obviously we'll need a second series round of consultations in the different regions to test these improvements and to finalize the ULS before its final launch. And we think it would be more or less in 1 year.
Yeah. Okay, that should be very interesting, because we all, you more than me, put a lot of thought into this, but it's all theory, right? So to see it, how it works in practice, because before it will be finalized. Yeah, thank you.
We will be in touch with many of you as part of the consultations we had, the online platform and other activities we had during this first project. And I'm sure we'll have interesting activities. And again, we are not inventing anything here. This is pretty much the standard to develop standards. We need time to first develop a pilot version, to test it in the real world, and to adapt, and again to consult and to publish the final version. So 2 years, it's pretty much a standard to develop this sort of tools. Okay. Otherwise, I think it was interesting. Again, we are really happy. It's quite an important moment for us to deliver this week the final version, thanks to many comments and feedback and efforts in these consultations, in all the activities we had during the last year. And thanks to all of you who had been part of these activities, as part of the tag, as part of the consultations. We are just about to conclude this first project. And again, you'll have access to the pilot version on Wednesday. We'll be in touch with you via email just to confirm it is online. And we'll be in touch with you for the next steps.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
Your support.
All right.